Hey everybody, and welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into something that I think is going to be really useful for a lot of you out there,
Oh, yeah.
especially those of you who are working maybe as solo developers or are part of a fast-paced startup environment.
Okay, got it.
We're going to be talking about Docusaurus.
Docusaurus.
Yeah, and it's this really cool tool for building websites.
Okay,
And I think when a lot of people think of Docusaurus, they think documentation sites,
right.
but you can really build kind of anything that you can dream up with this thing.
Interesting.
And the best part is that it lets you focus on what you do best,
Which is?
coding.
Aha, of course.
So we've got a bunch of articles and even the official Docusaurus GitHub repo lined up to dig into.
Sounds good.
Uh,
So what's so interesting about Docusaurus is that
yeah.
it really streamlines the process of building a website.
Yeah.
And as a developer, you're probably more interested in building your product than fiddling with all this website infrastructure, right?
100%. I would way rather be knee-deep in code than figuring out CSS.
Totally.
So tell me, what is Docusaurus?
So Docusaurus is an open source project
Okay.
that was created by Meta.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the Facebook people.
Okay.
And it's essentially a static site generator,
Okay.
but it's kind of supercharged for creating documentation websites.
Gotcha.
Although you can use it for other types of sites too.
Okay.
You can think of it as like a framework that sits on top of React
Okay.
that handles all the tricky parts of setting up a website.
So you don't have to.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's built on React,
Yeah.
which a lot of us are already familiar with.
Hopefully.
That's a good start.
Yeah.
But what makes it so special for documentation?
Okay.
Why not just use a regular static site generator or even build something from scratch?
So Docusaurus is specifically designed with documentation in mind.
Okay.
So you can write all of your content in Markdown,
Great.
which is a lifesaver for
Yeah.
developers who already use Markdown for, pretty much everything.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And it also supports MDX,
MDX.
which means that you can sprinkle in React components
Okay.
for interactivity if you want to get really fancy.
Wait, Markdown and React components together.
Yeah,
That sounds really cool.
it's pretty slick.
So I can write docs and like add in interactive elements
yeah.
without having to jump through a bunch of hoops.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And on top of that, Docusaurus handles things like search functionality versioning for your documentation.
Wow.
And even translations right out of the box.
Hold on. Built-in versioning and translations.
Yes.
I'm sold. I'm kidding. But seriously, that's a huge
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
saver because I know how much time those things can suck up.
For sure.
And you mentioned some big names are using it.
Yeah, so Mark Erickson, the maintainer of Redux, uses it
Okay.
and sings its praises.
Okay.
You've got teams like Supabase using it.
Okay.
Even the official React Native docs are built with Docusaurus. Yeah. So if it's good enough for them, it's probably at least worth looking at, right?
Yeah, that's some serious street cred.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm convinced I need to at least check this out.
All right.
How do I get started?
Okay.
Is it complicated?
It is surprisingly easy.
Okay.
If you have Node.js version 18 or higher installed,
Mm-hmm.
you can get a basic Docusaurus site running with just one command.
Okay.
npx create Docusaurus at latest.
Okay.
And if you are a TypeScript fan,
Yeah.
you can add a TypeScript flag,
Okay.
and that'll give you a TypeScript-based project.
So it's literally just Node
Pretty much.
with one command.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's super easy to get started.
What about the project structure?
Okay.
Anything I should be aware of when I crack it open?
It's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
You'll have folders for your blog, your documentation, source code, static assets, and a config file called docusaurus.config.js,
Okay.
where you can control all the site settings.
Okay.
It's all pretty intuitive. And here's a bonus
Yeah.
for those working in the startup world.
Uh-huh.
Docusaurus works really well in monorepo setups.
Monorepos.
Yeah,
Nice.
very useful.
That's becoming pretty standard for startups these days.
Yeah, I think so.
So let's talk about building with Docusaurus.
Okay.
What kinds of content can it handle?
All right.
It sounds like docs are the main thing,
Yeah.
but what else can it do?
So docs are definitely its sweet spot,
Okay.
but you can do more than just documentation with it.
Okay.
So Docusaurus lets you create standalone pages
Mm-hmm.
for things like landing pages, about pages,
Uh-huh.
or even to showcase projects.
Okay, cool.
And you can build these pages using React components or just plain Markdown.
Okay.
And then, of course, you have the docs section where
Yeah.
you can organize all your documentation into a clear hierarchy with a sidebar.
Okay.
And if you want to share your thoughts with the world, maybe some coding tutorials,
Uh-huh.
Docusaurus has a built-in blog feature as well.
So we've got pages for like more static content,
Yeah.
docs for like the core documentation,
Right.
and even a blog.
That's right.
That's a pretty versatile toolkit.
Yeah, you can do a lot with it.
Yeah.
And it all comes together really elegantly.
Okay.
Docusaurus handles routing based on your project folder structure, which keeps things nice and organized.
That's great for keeping my code clean and maintainable.
Exactly.
But let's talk about customization.
Okay.
We've talked about what Docusaurus can do out of the box,
Yeah.
but how much control do I have over like the look and feel of my site?
You have a lot of control.
Okay.
Docusaurus is incredibly customizable.
Okay.
The main way you'll control things is through the docusaurus.config.js file.
Okay.
That's like mission control for your whole site.
So that's where I can tweak everything.
Pretty much, yeah. Sounds pretty powerful.
It is powerful.
Okay.
You can change the site title, tagline, favicon, social media tags. You can even add custom metadata for SEO.
And that's just scratching the surface.
Okay.
Docusaurus also has a plugin system for adding new features, and there's a whole ecosystem of themes to choose from.
Okay.
And if you want even more control,
Yeah.
there's this concept called swizzling.
Swizzling.
Yeah.
What is that?
So swizzling basically lets you override Docusaurus's default components
Okay.
with your own custom ones.
So if I understand correctly,
Right.
I can tweak the config file for like the basic settings.
Yeah.
Add plugins for like extra functionality.
Right.
Use a theme for like a quick makeover. And if I'm feeling really adventurous, I can swizzle things to get like super granular.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the documentation walks you through a lot of those customization options,
Perfect.
step by step, so you're not left in the dark.
And did I hear correctly that all of this is free?
Yes.
Like totally free?
Totally free.
Really?
Docusaurus is completely free and open source.
Wow.
The project is hosted on GitHub,
Yep.
so you can even check out the code and contribute if you're feeling generous.
Free open source and built by Meta.
Yeah.
That almost sounds too good to be true.
I know, right?
It's like they're giving away the secret sauce.
Pretty much.
If you're still on the fence.
Yeah.
They've got these things called Docusaurus playgrounds.
Yes.
And you can use the shortcut docusaurus.new to spin up a playground in your browser.
That's right.
Or there are options for using Code Sandbox and StackBlitz.
Yeah.
If you prefer those environments.
That's a good way to just test the waters without installing anything.
Yeah, perfect. So you can kind of kick the tires before you commit.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about like the features
Yeah.
and the customization and all that stuff.
Right.
But let's get down to like the nitty-gritty for a second.
Okay.
First, developers.
Yeah.
Time is precious.
It is.
What are the actual advantages of using Docusaurus?
Okay.
Like, does it actually save me time and effort compared to other solutions out there?
It absolutely does, especially if you are, focused on building a product
Right.
and don't want to get bogged down with website maintenance. Docusaurus just takes care of so much behind the scenes.
Like what?
For example, it will automatically generate a sitemap.xml file,
Okay.
which is essential for SEO,
Right.
and it'll make sure that your site is using clean semantic HTML,
Okay.
which search engines love.
SEO. That's usually something I try to avoid thinking about until like the last minute.
Yeah.
But knowing that Docusaurus is already handling those foundational elements is a huge relief.
Yeah, for sure.
Can I still control things like metadata and robots.txt though?
Yes, you have full control.
Okay.
In your docusaurus.config.js file,
Yeah.
you can specify things like global metadata for your site,
Right.
including keywords, social media tags, and descriptions.
Okay, cool.
And if you need to fine-tune things for individual pages, you can add metadata directly to your Markdown files
Okay.
or React components. As for robots.txt, you just drop a file in your static folder, and Docusaurus will include it in your build.
Awesome. So I'm not like locked into some generic SEO setup or anything like that.
Nope, you have full control.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
What about any other like hidden gems? Are there any features that people might not immediately think of but are actually super useful?
One feature that often flies under the radar,
Okay.
but is incredibly valuable,
Okay.
is Docusaurus's support for internationalization,
Internationalization.
or I-18N for short.
Oh, yeah. Translations.
Yeah.
That can be kind of a headache,
It can be,
especially when you're trying to keep things organized and up to date.
for sure.
Yeah.
But Docusaurus makes it surprisingly straightforward.
Okay.
It is built-in support for managing multiple languages,
Okay.
and you can even integrate it with translation services like Crowdin.
So if I wanted to have my documentation available in, say, Spanish or Chinese, Docusaurus can handle all of that.
They can. Basically, you create separate versions of your content for each language.
Okay.
And Docusaurus handles all the heavy lifting, like switching between languages
Okay.
and displaying the correct content based on the user's preferences.
So I don't have to build like a separate system for managing all of that.
No, you don't.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's really helpful.
I'm starting to see why so many developers rave about Docusaurus.
Yeah,
It's like they've really thought of everything,
they really have.
that we need to create like a professional website without all the usual hassles.
Exactly.
And here's the icing on the cake.
Oh, yeah,
There's a really active and supportive community
there is.
around Docusaurus.
Huge community.
There are tons of plugins and themes to choose from,
That's right.
and the documentation is constantly being updated and improved.
Mm-hmm.
So if you run into a problem or if you want to add some fancy new feature,
Mhm.
chances are someone in the community has already figured it out
Probably.
and is willing to help.
Ex-
Knowing that there's a community to fall back on is a huge plus,
Oh, yeah.
especially when you're a solo developer or part of a small team.
Huge plus.
Speaking of solo developers and startups,
Yeah.
let's talk about how Docusaurus addresses their specific needs and challenges.
Okay, so for solo developers and startups,
Yeah.
time is obviously a very precious commodity.
Right.
They need to move quickly and efficiently, especially when it comes to things like building a website,
Right.
which are important, but not necessarily their core focus.
Right.
So Docusaurus allows them to do just that.
Okay.
It provides this really robust, out-of-the-box solution
Okay.
that requires minimal setup and configuration.
Gotcha.
So they can get a professional-looking website up and running very quickly.
It's like the easy button
It is.
for creating a developer website.
Pretty much.
It takes care of all the grunt work
Yeah,
so you can focus on your product and
Yeah.
your users.
exactly.
It handles things like setting up routing, optimizing for SEO,
Yep.
managing translations,
All that stuff.
which frees you up to focus on creating great content
Right.
and building your product.
Exactly.
And we can't forget that it's completely free and open source,
It is.
which is huge for bootstrapped startups that are watching their budget.
For sure.
But let's be realistic.
Okay.
No tool is perfect.
True.
Are there any downsides or things to watch out for with Docusaurus?
You are right. No tool is perfect.
Yeah.
And while Docusaurus offers a lot of flexibility, it is primarily designed for content-heavy sites.
Okay.
So if you are building like a complex web application
Uh-huh.
with lots of dynamic functionality,
Yeah.
you might find yourself fighting against its conventions a little bit.
Okay.
It's not really meant for things like e-commerce platforms or social networks.
Right. So it's amazing for documentation, blogs, landing pages, even showcasing projects.
Yeah.
But maybe not the best choice for like a full-blown web application.
Exactly. And
No.
like any powerful tool, there is a bit of a learning curve, especially if you're new to React or static site generators.
Right.
But honestly, the documentation is so good
Okay.
that you can pick it up pretty quickly.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
It's a specialized tool.
it is.
But for its intended use cases, it sounds like a real game changer.
It is.
Anything else our listeners should know before they jump in and start building?
One thing to keep in mind
Yeah.
is that Docusaurus is still a relatively young project.
Okay.
It's evolving quickly,
Yeah.
which is great.
Yeah.
But it also means that you might encounter breaking changes between versions.
Okay, right. So you need to kind of stay up to date
You do.
to make sure that your site is still working the way you expect it to.
Exactly.
Ah, the joys of open source software.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Always evolving, always learning.
Always.
But the Docusaurus team seems pretty good about documenting changes and providing migration guides, right?
Are very good at that.
So you don't have to worry about being left in the dark.
No, you don't.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground here.
Yeah, we have.
From features and benefits to potential drawbacks.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to get your final thoughts.
Okay.
Why is Docusaurus such a game changer for solo developers and startups?
Okay.
What's the key takeaway here?
I think the biggest takeaway is that Docusaurus empowers developers to create these really professional, optimized websites quickly and easily,
Yeah.
freeing them up to focus on what really matters,
And what's that?
their product and their users.
Okay.
It's a tool that can really significantly streamline that website creation process
Wow.
and save them time and resources
Right.
that can be better spent elsewhere.
Perfectly said.
Thank you.
So for our listeners who are eager to jump in and get started,
Yeah.
what's the best way?
Just head over to the Docusaurus website. You'll
Yeah.
find all the documentation, tutorials,
Mm-hmm.
and a really helpful community forum.
Great. And don't forget about those Docusaurus playgrounds.
Oh, yeah. The playgrounds are great.
where you can experiment and kind of get a feel for the tool right in your browser.
That's right.
Perfect. We'll be right back to wrap up this Docusaurus deep dive.
Sounds good.
So stick around. And we are back for the final part of our Docusaurus deep dive.
All right.
You know what's funny?
What's that?
We've spent all this time talking about the technical features and benefits of Docusaurus.
Right.
But there's something more here.
Oh, really? Like what?
Something that I think kind of speaks to the heart of what it means to be a developer.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
It's about more than just building a website, right?
Yeah.
It's about freedom
Yes.
and empowerment.
Exactly. Docusaurus gives developers the power to create their own online space without having to become website experts.
Right. You don't have to be like a front-end guru.
Yeah, it's like it removes that barrier to entry.
Totally.
It says, hey, you focus on your code, we'll handle the rest.
Exactly. That's huge, especially for solo developers and startups who are already juggling so many responsibilities.
Right.
It's one less thing to worry about, one less thing to learn,
Yeah.
one less thing that's standing in the way of building something amazing.
And because it's built with familiar technologies like React and Markdown,
Right.
it feels like an extension of your development workflow,
Yeah,
not a separate thing you have to learn from scratch.
totally. That familiarity makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
It means you can get up and running quickly and focus on the content.
Yeah.
And let Docusaurus handle all the technical details.
I remember when I first started building websites.
Oh, yeah.
It felt like such a chore.
It can be.
There were so many moving parts, so many things to learn, so many ways to get it wrong. Docusaurus just simplifies the whole process.
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
It takes all that complexity and hides it away. And it gives you this nice, clean, intuitive interface for building your site.
Yeah, it's like they took all the best parts of static site generators and combined them with the power and flexibility of React.
And the community aspect is just incredible.
It is.
Knowing that there are thousands of other developers out there using Docusaurus, sharing their knowledge, creating new plugins and themes.
Right.
It's really inspiring.
That community support is invaluable,
Oh, yeah.
especially when you're just starting out.
For sure.
You can always find someone who's been there before.
Right.
Someone who can help you troubleshoot a problem
Yep.
or point you in the right direction.
Exactly.
So to all the solo devs and startup founders out there,
Yeah.
if you're looking for a way to build a beautiful, functional website without sacrificing your precious time and energy,
Yeah.
Docusaurus is definitely worth checking out.
It is a game changer, plain and simple.
Yeah.
It empowers you to focus on what you do best, building great products.
Yeah.
And it gives you the tools you need to share your work with the world.
I couldn't have said it better myself. So we've covered a lot in this deep dive.
We have.
We've talked about the features, the benefits, the potential drawbacks, and even the philosophy behind Docusaurus.
It's been a fascinating journey.
It has.
And I hope our listeners have found it valuable.
Me too. And if there's one thing I want you to take away from this episode,
Yeah.
it's this. Don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to try new things. And don't be afraid to embrace the power of tools like Docusaurus
For sure.
that can help you achieve your goals.
Couldn't agree more.
Keep learning, keep building, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Absolutely.
That's it for this deep dive.
All right.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep creating, and keep diving deep.
See you on the next one.
See ya.